the end of the world is coming?
Since the dawn of man, we have told stories about the end of the world. Whether it's through mythology, religion, or contemporary arts, film and music, the apocalypse has always fascinated us. In regards to music though, perhaps no other band evokes a stronger sense of impending doom than Canadian post-rock outfit Godspeed You, Black Emperor, and their ability to sonically express desolation, havoc, and societal collapse is simply unparalleled. In this video, we'll take a look at one of the finest rock bands out there, in particular their seminal, larger-than-life debut, F-sharp A-sharp Infinity, a record that truly embodies this apocalyptic dread, while at the same time sharing a message of hope in times of despair. Legendary, fabled, critically acclaimed music collective Godspeed You, Black Emperor has made a conscious effort to let the music speak for itself. Operating outside the traditional music industry, they've only released a couple of press photos and given a handful of interviews in their history spanning 2 decades. Despite this, they've achieved considerable success, gaining somewhat of a cult following, and though they very much are a collective, basically refuting individualism in every sense of the word, the story of Godspeed still begins with one man. Musician, producer and engineer Efrim Menuck once described his childhood as an apocalypse, and he left home at an early age. A high school dropout, he moved to Montreal in his 20s to enroll in a mature student program, having, quote, very many rough years. I had a rough period from about the age of 17 to 23. I was homeless, broke and f***ed up, and everyone I knew was homeless, broke and f***ed up. That was when everything clicked in my head. I realized the world was unjust, that the game was rigged. These rough yet formative years, feeling abandoned by modern society, would later prove highly influential for the spirit of Godspeed. Much of their work carries a strong anti-capitalistic message, encouraging, for instance, universal housing, food and healthcare, an end to all foreign invasion, and the taxation of the rich. Anyway, that's jumping ahead. Fed up with the depressing live scene in Montreal during the post-grunge era, Menuck stopped playing music for a number of years, feeling it was going nowhere. Nevertheless, he wasn't quite ready to give it up just yet. In the book Fearless, The Making of Post-Rock, Menuck explains, "The idea was that this would be the last thing I would ever do, a big dramatic gesture that nobody would care about. It was a private thing. Let's get this out of my system and then figure out something else to do with my life." After 6 months of recording, Menuck, adopting the name Godspeed You, Black Emperor after the 1976 Japanese film of the same name, self-released All Lights F***ed on the hairy amp Drooling in December of 1994. The cassette, given a release of only 33 copies, wasn't to be heard by the world until years later, when it finally leaked to the internet in early 2022. Ironically though, All Lights became the opposite of a swan song for Menuck. A friend of his liked the cassette and asked him to open for his band. Unwilling to perform the show alone, Menuck assembled a trio of himself, Mauro Pesente and Mike Moya. Soon after, the band grew to become a collective of, at one time, as many as 15 members, and started work on what eventually would become F-sharp A-sharp Infinity.
His name that sat on him was death, and hell followed with him.
Eschatology is the study of the Last Judgment, the end of human history, or the world itself. It's a theme occurring in most religions and mythologies, from the biblical 4 horsemen of the apocalypse to Ragnarok, the final battle, according to Norse mythology. In more modern times, we've also seen a number of so-called doomsday cults who prophesied to detrimental effect that the apocalypse was just around the corner. With the advent of the Cold War and the threat of atomic warfare, certain films dealing with eschatological themes started becoming popular and gave rise to a whole new cinematic genre. Today, the number of apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic movies that tell stories of nuclear fallout, war, desolation, despair, and the total loss of basic human decency are too many to even count. Likewise, many of these dreary motifs are also at the core of Godspeed's music and recur throughout their body of work. The Hebrew text on the cover of Slow Riot for New Zero Canada translates to something chaotic, desolate, vacant, a wasteland, and Yankee UXO, recorded in the wake of the September 11 attacks, paints a grim picture of a world plagued by war, foreign invasion, and deep social unrest. The threat of a nuclear holocaust once again looming in the air. However, looking at Godspeed's entire discography, these fateful themes are nowhere as apparent as on their debut, with one review even describing the music as eschatological tape loops. Surely one of the bleakest, most foreboding albums ever, F-sharp, A-sharp Infinity works as a sort of soundtrack to the apocalypse, either directly referencing it or at the very least through its incredibly dreary tone. And I mean soundtrack in a literal sense, because the canvas that Godspeed paints on is undoubtedly filmic, characterized by dramatic orchestration, ambient passages, slow build-ups, and rising crescendos. The 3 tracks, each divided into separate movements, go from being the uttermost quiet to jaw-droppingly climactic, at times feeling more akin to an epic Ennio Morricone composition, only in some sort of darker, more twisted spaghetti western, rather than a rock album. Indeed, Infinity truly is a cinematic album, and Godspeed's film is one of a bleak, wasted society where everything has turned to shit and where the impending doom draws near. This is perfectly summed up already within the first minute of the album.
The car's on fire, and there's no driver at the wheel, and the sewers are all muddied with 1,000 lonely suicides, and a dark wind blows.
What we're hearing is the Dead Flag Blues, and being the first track on the first full-length album, it not only brilliantly sets the tone of the entire record, it also establishes the winning formula that would make Godspeed, Godspeed. The song is made up of 3 movements. The narration, accompanied by drones, strings, and a plucked guitar riff, takes up the entirety of the first part. The second part consists of a train recording and an ambient passage with some rising instrumentation. The drums don't arrive until the 11-minute mark, and it unexpectedly ends with a joyous glockenspiel melody. All in all, the Dead Flag Blues can be seen as very much a blueprint for much of Godspeed's later work. Voice samples, build-ups, drones, field recordings, etc. all make up the identity of their sound, whereas often a narration sort of acts as a replacement for the lack of a lead singer and lyrics. Menuck said about the creative process: the way that we were stitching things together, short pieces, long pieces, field recordings, tape loops, it felt the same as editing 16mm film. And also the idea of not being afraid to have bad splices. We weren't too interested in the invisible hand. The idea was that the music itself should be tactile, so if there's background noise or distortion, it was fine. We wanted it to be smudged and fingerprinted. Quickly coming back to the opening narration, which more than anything gives the track its apocalyptic character, it even comes from a movie script of Menuck's, further demonstrating how Godspeed blurs the lines between music and film, and why the album feels so incredibly cinematic.
I said, kiss me, you're beautiful. These are truly the last days.
Moving on to track 2, East Hastings, it too consists of 3 movements. It begins with a sample of a street preacher shouting sermons of salvation before slowly building up to one of Godspeed's most striking climaxes. It It's arguably the grimmest track on the entire album, in parts due to its connection to our own dystopian reality.
The city of Vancouver started the morning with the monumental task of removing structures and tents along Hastings Street.
You don't think these things will be back here next week?
Some started taking down their tents and packing up their belongings, but the question on everyone's mind, where to go next?
If the music isn't enough, knowing that the track draws inspiration and derives its name from the infamous East Hastings Street in Vancouver's downtown east side, a neighborhood long known for its problems with drug addiction, poverty, homelessness, mental illness and crime, makes it all the more depressing. In 2010, the BBC described the neighborhood as home to one of the worst drug problems in North America, and things have only gotten worse with the advent of new detrimental drugs such as fentanyl or even worse, tranq, the flesh-rotting drug often called the zombie drug. There's a twisted irony to all this, since East Hastings also was used to great effect in the film 28 Days Later, a modern classic that single-handedly revived the whole zombie genre. Director Danny Boyle even said that he had Godspeed's music in mind all the way through making his Apocalyptic smash hit.
You think the end of the world is coming?
Like the album opener, the final song and 30-minute behemoth, Providence, also begins with a voice sample referencing the end of the world, followed by arguably one of Godspeed's best consecutive runs of movements. Either way you interpret it, Godspeed clearly makes a statement about faith here. Besides literally naming the song Providence, there are two intriguing samples relating to Christianity. First, they eerily twist the voice of bluegrass icon Hazel Dickens singing Gathering Storm in the melody of the famous Christian hymn Amazing Grace.
Deliver us from the gathering storm.
Shortly after, a piece of the 1973 film Godspell, based on the Christian musical of the same name, is also used in a new and, to say the least, haunting way.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
So, if the despairing East Hastings hinted at a total loss of faith, Providence, in light of its existential influences, might just suggest the rekindling of that faith or hope. The world ending but being born anew. String Loop as a whole especially exudes that post-apocalyptic tone. And if society, or the world as we know it, really ended here, that Godspell sample acts as a reminder for us to try to move in a new and better direction, not repeating the same fateful mistakes. Now, after all, this may sound like the gloomiest record ever, and I haven't even begun to cover all the details that make it the apocalyptic masterpiece it is. Take for instance the original packaging that included, among many beautiful inserts, a train-flattened Canadian penny, symbolizing perhaps a broken society or a post-apocalyptic world where money is rendered useless. Though, despite the gloom, Godspeed still provides moments of stunning beauty and, most importantly, sprinkles of hope. Just take all those gorgeous string sections or sweet, innocent glockenspiel melodies that pierce through the darkness, becoming shimmers of light. Also, Godspeed makes it clear that hope is in fact what they're going for. In 2012, they collectively said that they tried to make heavy music joyously, and on another occasion, guitarist David Bryant commented, "People who play the record say it's depressing, defeated music. That's not what I get from it. It's sad, but it's throwing out triggers like hope." The message is clear. The world is f***ed, our society corrupt, and we're all trapped in this horrible machine that wants us to keep living in fear. But on the opposite side of fear lies love, and in Godspeed's case, hope. Hope for a kinder world where decency and compassion trump greed and desire for power. So, that's F-sharp, A-sharp, Infinity in a nutshell. A larger-than-life album with a timeless message that simply hits home. Released in June of 1998, the album is today considered a milestone in post-rock, and even though Godspeed themselves don't identify, they've been crucial for the genre's popularity and influenced numerous bands. Godspeed's next release would go on to receive widespread critical acclaim, and is often considered their magnum opus. But to me, there's just something special about the debut that always resonates. It's a masterful exercise in tension and release that both breaks my heart and sends shivers down my spine. And very few albums do as good of a job of capturing a particular atmosphere or tone. But what truly makes Infinity special is Godspeed's ability to balance darkness, desolation, and despair with gorgeous arrangements of beauty and hope. They say hope is the last thing that dies in a man, and Godspeed's music proves it. No matter how dark it gets, how corrupt and cruel a world, or how hard the struggle, this too shall pass. It's a constant matter of moving forward, towards a new heaven, a new earth. For the world we inhabited yesterday has now ended, gone, never to return.